rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective with your host, me, Rick. Hi, everybody. It's Friday. It's finally coming down to the weekend. I'm excited, mainly just because of the fact that I get some people coming back to the hacienda here in the next 48 hours, hopefully. Anyway, I've been missing them. So anyway, here we are. It's Friday, and I've got some news for you that has broken here. A couple of things that have broken with regards to the Trump attempted assassination. And some of the conspiracy theories that have been running around in the left realm. And plus, I also have some other items on the docket here, too. Some sort of surprising stuff, maybe not. But anyway, some updates on some of the cases, the SCOTUS cases that have been kicked out, and some of the fallout from that. That's what I'm looking for. So anyway, that's all coming up for tonight. But first, we need to get and apparently my rumblers are ordering to-goes. Anyway, all right, let's get these things started. I have tonight on tap Buddy Weiser from Rumble leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So please, if you are of mind, stand, remove your hats, put your hand over your hearts, and join in with Buddy leading the charge on tonight's Pledge of Allegiance.
I hereby pledge my allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which she stands, one nation under one God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all her citizens. So help me God.
Thank you, Buddy, for that rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to get your rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance played on the program, all you need to do is record yourself doing it and then send in the recording to me. Send the audio file to me, to my email, fans@americanperspective.online. That's fans@americanperspective.online. And it looks like Coco is making some sort of a stop. I guess the restaurant's called Culver's. Never heard of them. But then again, we don't have a lot of the same stuff out here in the West that you guys do back East. And she's apparently getting a Butterfinger milkshake. And Amy wanted a peanut butter and hot fudge shake earlier. But anyway. Yeah, a Butterfinger. Ugh. Yeah, wow. Anyway. All right. So let's talk. Let's talk. So, Christopher Wray went up on the Hill. That's what they call it. And he went up on the Hill and testified. And during his testifying or testimony, I should say, he kind of brought up this idea that Trump wasn't actually hit by a bullet. And the thing about it is that came on the heels of a lot of people on the left who have, lit off. Now, they call us conspiracy theorists. All right. But they lit off this entire thing where Trump was A, not hit by a bullet, that he was actually hit with shrapnel, and B, The alternative was that he set up the whole goddamn thing. Now, as I've explained, it is not fun to be shot at, whether you're actually being shot at directly or, you know, you're having rounds pass over your head. It makes you think. As you hear those things whizzing above your head, believe me, you like suck to the ground and say, oh, I don't want to get shot. So this whole concept, or this whole idea that the left has been running around with, has been saying, you know, they've been saying, oh no, he wasn't shot. This was all a setup, so on and so forth. Then Christopher Wray goes up and testifies that he isn't even sure that the injury to Donald Trump was the result of an actual bullet. Don't believe me? Well, here it is in hot air. FBI director goes conspiratorial on Trump shooting. Well, yeah. You know, the FBI director, you would think, would have his finger on the pulse of his own damn freaking department and the people within it. Because right before I started my setup for the show, this comes out in the Daily Wire. FBI confirms Trump was struck by a bullet. So the Federal Bureau of Investigation confirmed today that former President Donald Trump was, in fact, struck in the head by a bullet during the assassination attempt 2 weeks ago. The FBI issued an official statement. What struck former President Trump in the ear was a bullet, whether whole or fragmented into smaller pieces, fired from the deceased subject's rifle. The Bureau's statement comes, of course, after the Christopher Wray sparking controversy. When is this guy going to get fired? I mean, let's just put it out there bluntly. Well, I mean, I already know that nobody gets fired in the Biden administration, not even Biden himself. But for incompetence, of course, which, you know, I'm not going that far out on a limb by saying that this was a sheer level of incompetence, starting off with the idea that they could substitute Secret Service personnel who have been specifically trained for personal protection details with DHS employees. Now, there's a general, you know, just so you understand, there is a general training that all federal law enforcement goes through. But then you have the individualized and specialized training that you need to go through. And one of them happens to be personal protective details. And that is exactly what has happened here. The number of agents that were there on site was fairly low in comparison to other protectee situations. There's also been some new information that has come out that the Secret Service, or whoever was in charge at this particular site, they're calling them Secret Service. I'm saying most of the people that made the decisions were probably DHS personnel, would be my guess. But I can't confirm that, so there you go. However, there's also a whistleblower that came out that said that the police department, the local police department, offered up drone surveillance when the Secret Service didn't show up with their own drone setup. And they were turned down. So they, you know, the local police offered to have a drone, to fly a drone over the site. Now, we also have been told, and the FBI has discovered and released, that the shooter himself had a drone flying over the area roughly 2 hours or so, a few hours, I'll just say, maybe not 2 specifically, but a few hours before the event, in order to try and scope things out. This is just such a freaking, this is such a freaking nightmare. I can't even believe this. Reports have also come out that the higher levels of the Secret Service were basically saying that counter sniper teams were not allowed to go to any of Trump's rallies or campaign stops if they were outside of a single day's driving range outside of DC. So, yeah, there's just so much stuff that is pointing to the fact that Joe Biden and his Secret Service and Alejandro Mayorkas, who is the commander of DHS, and remember, the Secret Service falls under the DHS, that they very well could have made decisions that affected the capability and the potentiality of this particular shooter being able to get within essentially a hair's breadth of taking the life of former President Donald Trump and soon to be president once more. So anyway, it's not only the FBI that did it, but the New York Times also apparently conducted their own video, audio, and trajectory analysis this week that also found they agreed. They agreed with the FBI. They basically said that, yeah, it was a bullet. It was definitely a bullet and not any kind of debris. Now, one of the things also, too, is that the forensic experts have looked at this picture that is shown here. Now, I showed you this photo in the past. I showed you a couple different variations of it. But this picture that shows the sonic and air separation by the bullet going by Donald Trump's head, and ultimately is assumed to be the bullet that hit and killed Corey Comporatone. Okay. But forensic experts confirmed that this photo was not doctored, was not, altered in any way, and actually was the one that captured the bullet passing by Trump's head after it had struck his ear. And that this particular photo happened to be the first shot that was fired. So, all of this, all of the left, and I'm just going to point this out, that the left right now, in terms of their ability to be correct on narratives, okay, they all have failed. They have failed on these narratives. It doesn't even matter what the narrative is in the last 5-6 years. They've all been wrong. They have all been wrong so far. And all of our conspiracy theories, by the way, have actually been, we're running a pretty good batting average right now. And by we, I'm talking about the conservative movement in terms of all of this. Well, there's one more conspiracy theory that's been running around, and it's only due to the fact that the left and, well, that the FBI, I guess, found out or discovered that the shooter, and yes, I am specifically attempting to essentially not state his name appropriately, but the shooter himself was a Republican. Now, one of the things that's been noticed by several people is that a lot of the violence, the gun violence, the mass shootings, the shootings, all of these things that are running around out there that have occurred over the last several years, okay, have been done by Democrats. And so the first thing that was out there with regards to this has always been that, well, the left is the more violent ones. The left is the ones that resort to doing these things, and that if the left would just quit shooting people, for an example, in terms of shots, the left would just quit shooting people, that, gun violence would drop by like 90%. Okay. And that reality has also come to roost again. So here, and this is what headed me down the path, here in town hall, headline, "We might have found a clue that points to the motive for Trump's would-be assassin." Well, what happened here? What would have been the clue? Because I thought that they couldn't find anything on the phone. I thought they only found a limited amount of information on the laptop. Well, apparently, according to the piece, the would-be assassin posted on the social media site Gab. Now, I am a part of Gab. I do have an account there. You can find me on that over there. I don't post very often there, and in fact, they took away the ability, at least for me, they took away the ability to put up images for free. So you have to have a purchased account in order to post images, which is part of the reason why I don't post there that much, because I like sharing memes and things like that when I run across them. But anyway, apparently, and Kanakoa the Great on X was the one that kind of steered everybody toward this, but Andrew Torba, who is I don't know if I don't think he owns it. Yeah, he's a co-founder. He doesn't own it all outright, but a co-founder. He posted on X here. He says, approximately 30 minutes ago, Gab learned that the shooter, who was a deranged Joe Biden supporter who attempted to assassinate President Donald Trump, may have had an account on our platform. We are unable to confirm that the account in question actually belonged to him. The account was last active on the site in 2021. As far as we are aware, the account did not use the site to send any direct messages. He posted on the site 9 times in total. And while the account made very few posts on the site, the majority of them were in support of President Biden. A number of posts in particular expressed support for President Biden's COVID lockdowns, border policies, and executive orders. Now, he states that they have saved the account data pending receipt of a search warrant, and he posted one of the posts, presumably by that. Well, Kanakoa the Great also posted it. And this right here, it shows Cat Turd as an example of one of the posts. At Cat Turd, didn't you also think Biden would lose in a landslide? Yeah, I would not be very confident in your election predictions. And then he also talks about the Biden's executive orders don't incentivize human trafficking, as human traffickers aren't interested in citizenships. Well, they are interested in getting people into the country. And he posted some more stuff, and you can go. I've got the link to the Kanakoa's X account, and you can take a look at that. And so he, whoever this individual is, assuming that this is the actual account, they basically have, obviously some things with regards to the immigration status and so on and so forth. So, yeah. This is a potential reason for why he was a Biden supporter and he wanted to get rid of Trump because, well, let's face it, Biden at the time was losing. And as of now, it really doesn't matter because, well, it does matter to find out why. But the other thing has to deal with the fact that we've obviously moved on to Kamala Harris. But anyway, that, again, we're back to the whole point. He may have been registered Republican. And as I pointed out, and I've pointed out on social media before, that chances are he registered as a Republican in order to vote against Donald Trump, such as to vote for Nikki Haley to get her in for the primary. Because a lot of Democrats were reported as having that kind of a plan. All right. So, the next thing that I want to discuss really fairly quickly in terms of this, because I don't really have, yeah, I mean, this is just kind of an obvious, but as I mentioned last night, the plan, or the it seems to be the marching orders moving forward, is talking about and pushing, okay, the whole narrative that this is going to be a woman's year, a woman's person of color year to get into the Oval Office. And that marching order has been confirmed in terms of this. They've been posting all over the social medias. They've been talking about these Zoom calls that they had where they were all white women who showed up, and they were talking about, you know, hundreds of thousands of all kinds of, 130,000, I think I saw at one point, for this Zoom call, and that they raised all this money and so on and so forth. And they're claiming that that is representative of all the white women that are going to vote for Kamala Harris, just because of the fact that she's a woman. And now the alternative too is the fact showing that, hey, if you are a person of color, okay, and don't vote for Kamala Harris, then you're not a person of color. Well, at least that's what Joy Reid says. I mean, again, keep in mind, I am not saying this. This is what the left is saying, and this is what the left is telling you. With regards to all kinds of things, like the fact that everybody's claiming that Kamala Harris wasn't the border czar. Well, she is the border czar. She was the border czar. You guys, you Democrats, are the ones that called her the border czar. It's not as though we made up that term. That was something you made up. Which, by the way, if anybody wants to look up House resolution, and that's the thing, is you have to make sure you look up House resolution under this year's Congress. So that's the 118th Congress, okay? And you look up House Resolution 253. It states right in that House resolution that she was named border czar back in March of 2021. So anyway, these people. All right. Well, Joy Reid, of course, is saying, hey, people of color, you guys are going to look real crazy if you abandon the cultural phenomenon that is Kamala Harris. And of course, Joy Reid releases public rants on her, whatever, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever the frick she uses. And she is essentially saying that any voter who planned to support Donald Trump would look real crazy in the upcoming presidential election following the stratospheric entrance of Kamala Harris into the race of the White House. And, yeah, so she's just nuts. And apparently this is her first tirade since Joe Biden decided to stand down. Reid called out and warned voters against being on the other side of that line come election day in November, adding that they would look real crazy were they to be so, emphasizing that her remarks were aimed towards people of color. Reid said voters swayed towards the Republican Party would look really weird and really lonely if they were to dismiss the cultural phenomenon of Vice President Harris. Well, here's the thing. First of all, voting for somebody just because of their immutable characteristics is, by definition, moronic. Okay? Moronic. And this is crazy. I mean, this is no different than voting for Obama just because he was a black man to get into the office. But as crazy as it sounds, I am not discounting the fact that this is likely going to sway some of the more low IQ, low information voters who are just saying, oh, well, I just want to be part of a historic event. And will frickin' vote for it anyway. Even though she literally is farther left than even Bernie Sanders and is completely off her rocker when it comes to all kinds of different positions. If she gets in, we're probably even worse off than we are under Joe Biden. That being said, though, oh, you know what? I just see that my Facebook stream probably just went down because I must have said something that pissed the Facebook people off. Whatever. I don't care. Moving on. Oh, no, now I'm being told it's back. Probably just a buffering issue or something. Anyway, so this is going to be the mantra that you're going to hear over the course of the next 4 to 5 months. Okay. Is because of the fact that this is essentially what's going to happen. People are going to say that voting for Kamala Harris because she is black and because she is a woman, or at least they think she's black, because again, there is some question, and depending upon the definition of what you consider to be black, she's certainly not African American. Okay, let's make that clarification really clear, because even though her skin color and her father's skin color may be black from being in Jamaica, that doesn't make her an African American. Just saying. So that being said, this is going to be the tack that they're going to take. They are going to try and get those individual voters or those independent voters who sit there and essentially say, oh, well, be part of something historic, be part of this, vote for her because you're, especially if you're a woman, you need to vote for her just because you happen to share the same genitalia. I mean, never mind the fact that you might be smart enough to realize that she is literally a socialist, a far left socialist who wants to destroy America completely. Well, I was looking for this video. I didn't find it, or I was going to cut it from one of the streams that I was watching, but this I was able to pick it up. So this is on X also. Let's see who posted it. I got to give a hat tip credit for who posted it. No Replay is the name of the account that posted it, but this is one of the things that is also going on is there seems to be a war back and forth about whether or not to vote for Kamala Harris just because you're black and you're a woman. And here there's some kind of a, as you can see here in the image, there is some kind of a, I don't know if it's like a Zoom call or a committee put together or whatever, but it's made up just for those on the audio portion of the program. You should probably head on over to rumble.com or YouTube or X or Facebook and watch the video. Right around the right around the 30-minute mark or so. But you go and you check this out. There's a series of what appears to be a group of, let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people, 8 or 9 people here. They're all persons of color. And, well, just take a listen. It's about 3 minutes long, so just take a listen.
Vote for? Let me ask you a question. Would you vote for?
Yeah.
Why?
I'm going to just be real honest with this. She's a black woman.
Yeah.
Because they skin folk, not kin folk.
I think it goes back to what somebody was saying, where it's not voting for someone, but majority will vote for someone else just.
Hold on. Let me man this out.
I think majority.
Is it only because she a black woman?
Yeah.
Do you not see how that's a bad idea?
Elaborate.
Okay, so we're in 3 proxy wars. with some of the most powerful leaders in the world. She failed at the border, in which we have an estimation of 15 to 20 million people illegally into this country. That is literally overtaking and bankrupting Chicago to the tune of over $400 million per year, and they're in a deficit. Oakland is going out of business. San Francisco, ditto. California, $65 billion deficit. New York, they're literally cutting trash, in which they are the rattiest, dirtiest city, and they've taken up resources as far as free healthcare, free hotels to the tune of $600 a day. They're literally taking over your schools. Your taxpayer dollars are going to fund the migrant crisis. She was supposed to be in charge of this. We have a failing economy. Every single day I see people getting on the internet talking about $30 an hour is the new minimum wage because inflation is fucking out of control. At one point, it was at almost 10%, depending on what city that you in. She has no policy, no record to stand on. One of the biggest things that she did in her career was lock up more black men than ever before, but we sitting here and vote her in office on identity politics. The very person that she was under as far as the president of the United States of America, she called him racist during the debate, which shows you how fake she is. And the only thing that we can stand on from a policy perspective is whether or not she's black and she's a woman. We did that during the Obama administration, and he didn't do anything for black people. As a matter of fact, y'all complain because the only person that he did, or the only group of people that he really stood for is the alphabet community, and that's his landmark thing that he's still standing on today. So the only thing that we have to stand on is identity politics. That shit didn't work with Tiffany Henyard in Dalton, Illinois. It didn't work with Karen Bass. It didn't work with Lori Lightfoot in Chicago. It didn't work with Brandon Johnson that then took over her position in Chicago. It didn't work with Andre Dickens in Atlanta. It didn't work with Eric Adams in New York. It doesn't work across the country. Every single Democratic city is a hellhole. And we sitting here talking about identity politics?
Oh my gosh. I mean, this guy, I gotta tell you, I've got to get a better quality of this video, seriously. And when I do, because actually, Wendy Bell played it this morning, and that's what triggered me to it. So I'm actually kind of glad that I found it in X. But I'm going to go back to her and to her thing, and I'm going to cut that out of her video. I also think, I'm not too sure, but I also think Dan Bongino may have played it too. But anyway, the point being is this guy, and I'm gonna cut it, and I'm gonna make it a small video, and I'm gonna post it everywhere I can, because this guy knows what the heck is going on here, and I would love to see people reach out to him and discuss with him his particular situation and exactly where he is talking about. This guy knows what he's saying. He is telling the truth, and it needs to get out there in front of everybody. And I am, amazed that, and well, not really necessarily amazed at the fact that somebody is doing this, but the fact that the mere idea of voting for somebody just because you share the same genitalia or the same skin color is beyond me. This is crazy. And that's what the left is going to try and put. They obviously can't fight on policy here. They cannot do that because of the fact that he's just, she's just absolutely left wing. And he is so based, this gentleman here, hat tip, to him for calling all of that out. He not only hit it on a national level, but he also went and hit it on all the state levels too, and the city levels, and the places where he's talking about. This is what I am saying, that we need as a group, as a group of individuals trying to disseminate the truth to a group of people who are sycophantically morons about anything that happens to deal with facts and evidence and the truth. It's this kind of information that needs to get out. It's this kind of position that needs to get out. And he clearly just laid the smackdown on that. Nice. I mean, she was nice. And at least she was honest. She was honest that, yeah, I'm voting for her because she's a black woman. And he laid the smackdown on her. Clearly laid the smackdown on her. I'm going to have to get, I am going to have to find a better quality of this video for doing that. And get it taken care of, get that cut and taken care of for sure. But I wanted to play that to you because that's the kind of thing that that we definitely need for that. What am I supposed to try harder at, buddy? I don't know what you're going. All right. So the last little piece on this is that Trump has announced that he will be going back to Butler, Pennsylvania, to perform a rally that is going to be a benefit, essentially, a benefit for the families that were hurt and obviously Corey killed in the attack, and he's going back to Butler for that reason. So you can't sit here and tell me that he doesn't care, because he does. He does. So all right. Well, let's move on to some other news, because obviously I've been talking a lot about Kamala Harris over the course of the week, and we've really got to get into some other news articles and news information that's running about. So, but before I do that, let me go ahead and take a second and a break, because I forgot to do this last night, and I certainly forgot to do it earlier tonight. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it now. You can check out this shirt that I wear. I wear all of these kinds of shirts. I wear a bunch of patriotic stuff. The majority of the patriotic shirts that I wear here on the program come from a website called theflagshirt.com. That's theflagshirt.com. And they have some wonderful patriotic gear. I personally like the cotton polos, which is what I mostly wear when it's not quite so hot here in the studio. But I also have some of their t-shirts too. You've seen me wear like the yellow shirt that I wear. It's kind of more orange than yellow, but that's the Don't Tread on Me shirt. And also too, I've got some other athletic style USA themed shirts as well. All of those can be found at theflagshirt.com. And you can head on over there and check out all of their patriotic styles for men, women, children. They have all kinds of accessories too. They have hats and glasses and ties and socks and just all sorts of stuff in the good old red, white, and blue. But I am going to help by sweetening the deal just a little bit. If you head over to flagshirt.americanperspective.online, that's flagshirt.americanperspective.online, you will get a code that you can use at checkout to get $5 off your order. Go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online and get that code, that coupon code, to enter in at checkout at theflagshirt.com to get $5 off your order. Once again, go to theflagshirt.com and take that $5 coupon that you find at flagshirt.americanperspective.online and get yourself $5 off your order. They also will ship free if you spend $75 or more. Go to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized. All right. Well, shifting into the international realm, this particular bit of news came out, and I'll be honest with you, it actually came out yesterday, but I'll be honest with you, it is an indicator as to what the international community believes is going to happen here in the United States. And essentially, it's a good indication. I mean, honestly, it is a good indication. It really is. And I certainly hope that it is going to be a complete, it will complete a cycle that needs to finish for this. But here in Town Hall, apparently reports are showing that Russia is suddenly open to peace talks with Ukraine after Biden drops out of the race. Could it be that maybe Russia has some sort of an indication that potentially we're going to get a total change in our stance, in America's stance toward Ukraine? Because one of the things that is likely going to change, pardon me, one of the things that's likely going to change is all of the money that we've been sending over to Ukraine for this supposed war. And, of course, the clear public announcements that Donald Trump will find a way, as he says, will find a way that that he will find a way to end this war quickly. He claims he could have it done in 24 hours. I'm not exactly sure, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. The point is, though, that Russia is all of a sudden open to peace talks with Ukraine. And ironically, Ukraine has actually kind of agreed with that, too. So the Ukrainian foreign minister, Dmytro Kuleba, told Chinese Communist Party diplomats in Beijing that the country is willing to negotiate with Russia despite heavy opposition from Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. Could we be seeing what is going on as a potential breakdown in their command structure? I don't know. Yeah, it looks like everybody is asking about what I am drinking. Well, what I'm drinking is actually a sort of a twisted tea. it's a adult kind of tea, but yeah. Anyway, it's not my usual fare, but you know, it is what it is. Anyway, so back to the to the article here. So for the last 2 years, Zelensky has refused to even consider a peace agreement with Russian President Vladimir Putin until Russian soldiers are no longer present in Ukraine. And that's including the Crimea and the Donbass region, which Moscow annexed in 2014. However, and this is according to the Global Times, Russia's change of heart came after Biden exited the presidential race, suggesting that new leadership in the U.S. may have impacted the decision. Chinese diplomats warned that the country would likely be abandoned if Ukraine continued to rely solely on the United States for military aid, as it had in the past under Biden. The Euro News is even suggesting that Zelensky has been a puppet of the West, alleging that decisions regarding its war with Russia were made by politicians in Washington and not in Kiev. So, yeah. Yup. Probably. And of course, you know, President Trump also has announced that he plans to halt U.S. funding to Ukraine unless it enters peace talks. Peace talks. Well, could be that this might be the catalyst. I mean, the change in terms of our leadership might be the catalyst to bring these two to the table. Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't think that Zelensky is going to get back any of the land that's been annexed since 2014. That is just a pipe dream. But for the lines to basically stalemate where they are, or to essentially say, look, Russia, you keep the Crimea and the Donbass region. You already took it. everything else is still part of Ukraine, and we'll just call it a day. So, yeah. So anyway, I just don't think that this is a bad thing necessarily. But, you know, even the Ukrainian state outlet, Ukrinform, that's kind of an interesting name, echoed similar remarks, confirming that the country is ready to participate in peace talks with Russia. That's kind of interesting that they are doing this now. Right before we go into an election. So it's good news, though. Don't get me wrong. It is good news. I want us to get out of that whole situation. We don't need to be there. We don't need to be sending them money or anything else, for that matter. At the moment, we have our own problems here at home. Well, I don't know if anybody remembers, because, you know, it was a little while ago that this came out. And this actually came out right before the whole presidential immunity case got decided by SCOTUS. But SCOTUS also issued a very decisive and key victory in terms of this idea that regulatory bodies can just make up laws and interpret laws the way that they want to in the court system anytime that they wish. Pretty much leaving it to the courts to defer to the regulatory agencies when it comes to questionable or vague and imperfect law writing by Congress. That was called the Chevron deference. And now, because SCOTUS has said, you know what, Chevron deference, yeah, we're done. We're done. We're not going to do that anymore. The courts need to rely on other experts, not the regulatory bodies and regulatory agencies, which is a win for federalism, a win for liberty, and definitely a win for the American people. But now, what ends up happening is Congress has to go back and start figuring out, okay, we have the admonishment from the Supreme Court. Now, what the hell do we do with it? Well, they have a couple different options, according to this piece in the Epoch Times. Lawmakers push dueling approaches to post-Chevron legislating. Republicans are attempting to review agency decisions upheld through Chevron deference, while Democrats are actually trying to codify the fact that the regulatory agencies have the decision-making ability. So, yeah. Congress is, and of course, these are the Democrats. The Democrats are basically, what they're doing here is they're trying to make it so that they have literally no responsibility whatsoever when it comes to this. Even though in the Constitution, it clearly states that all laws need to be made by Congress, and that the executive branch, where all of the regulatory agencies are basically lined up under, that those are the ones that they can do is enforce whatever law is written, which is essentially what the SCOTUS basically said, is that we're done with this whole deferring to the regulatory agencies to interpret law. The law is going to be interpreted by the court system the way the Constitution states that it should be. And it is also making it so that lawmakers actually have to do their god-darn jobs. They actually have to do something for their $174,000 per year as a new freshman congressman coming in, you know, AOC, and for all of that money that they have out there. So they're attempting to, again, Democrats are attempting to codify the whole Chevron deference. And the rest of, and this one in particular, is the Stop Corporate Capture Act, proposed by Senator Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, and other leading Democrats, purports to do just that while providing a host of other regulatory reforms. Ms. Warren points out that giant corporations are using far-right unelected judges to hijack our government and undermine the will of Congress. No, actually, you're undermining the will of Congress, because Congress should be making very succinct and specific laws. But Republicans have offered their own visions for a post-Chevron world. Ms. Warren's statement came on the same day that Senator Bill Cassidy touted legislation to rein in the executive branch. So the Republican-led House Committee on House Administration held a hearing on Congress in a post-Chevron world. Committee Chair Brian Steele praised the Supreme Court's decision in Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo for overruling Chevron deference. His statement was, now that the Supreme Court has correctly overturned the Chevron deference doctrine, we must begin restoring power to the legislative branch. This is our opportunity to ask important questions about the structure of Congress now that our role in the rulemaking process has been reestablished. And he is correct. So they are attempting to work through and go through all of these things in terms of understanding what the hell the SCOTUS position actually means. I personally am always erring on the side of constitutionalism, and the fact of the matter is that even the mere fact of Congress passing over their tax collecting duties over to the IRS is, to me, unconstitutional anyway, because Congress can't just pass off its responsibilities to somebody else. They've done the same thing in DC. Congress is supposed to make all the laws and be in charge in the DC area constitutionally, and yet they've passed it off to city leaders like Mayor Muriel Bowser. Congress needs to stop passing off their constitutional responsibilities, and this is the first time that the courts, as far as I know, that the courts have essentially said, yeah, no. Constitutionally, you need to do this. This is your job, not anyone else. All right. Well, we have the answer. I mentioned it a while ago, but we have the answer to the whole idea of whether or not Jack Smith is going to be able to continue with the whole Florida case now that Eileen Cannon has agreed with Clarence Thomas at the SCOTUS, along with other constitutional scholars, that he was appointed unconstitutionally. And he has appealed. He has appealed to the 11th Circuit Court. And the 11th Circuit Court has now put out, and here it is, in the National Pulse. The 11th Circuit Court has now put out a schedule for this entire proceeding. Now, keep in mind, this schedule can be changed should Jack Smith decide to apply for and be granted an expedited request. So none of this is really 100% set in stone yet. If Jack Smith decides to apply for expedition, or an expedited format. But that being said, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals has given Jack Smith until August 27th to file his brief explaining why Judge Cannon's decision should be reversed. And then he will be given an additional 7 days to submit an appendix to that statement. Meanwhile, former President Trump's attorneys will have just 30 days to submit their own brief after Smith has filed his with the court. So basically, so you understand this, Jack Smith has until August 27th, if he takes that long to file his first brief. At that point, once it's filed, the prosecutor or the defense, in this case, has 30 days after that to file their rebuttal arguments to the whole thing. And then Jack Smith will have an additional 20 days from that in order for Jack Smith to file a response to their response. Well, the timeline laid out by the 11th Circuit means that unless Smith can secure an expedited process, his appeal will not actually be ruled on by the appellate court until just before November's presidential election. Now, should Smith prove successful in reversing Judge Cannon's ruling, his prosecution would not be able to move forward before the election was already over. That's assuming that they decide to overturn Eileen Cannon. So essentially what we're looking at here is, at the earliest, depending upon the expedited request, at the earliest, you're looking at just before the election, the Court of Appeals issuing their decision on this particular matter as to whether or not they're going to overturn it or not. So we could pretty much safely say that the Cannon case, it's the classified documents case in Florida, is for the most part on a very slow track moving forward for this situation. And the last case out of all these cases, this also in the Epic Times. So you recall that the Manhattan case, the one that was already been decided, Judge Merchan, the Trump team filed a briefing basically saying that, hey, now that he's been ruled as to have immunity, which, by the way, that includes conversations with his aides, regardless of what the content of those conversations are about, conversations with his aides and staff are considered privileged and can't be probed to find out if there is another crime. And so that particular piece is where the argument is coming into play with regards to this whole thing, because of the fact that they claim, the defense claimed, that testimony by a couple of different people falls under presidential immunity and therefore can't be used to accuse, much less alone convict, an individual under that scenario. And so now Bragg has come back and said, yeah, no, our case isn't covered or isn't affected by presidential immunity. So in this new court filing, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office argues that the former President Donald Trump's criminal case and guilty verdict are not affected by the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity. The statement said that decision has no bearing on this prosecution and would not support vacating the jury's unanimous verdict. Remember, it wasn't a unanimous verdict because they couldn't figure out what it was that he actually did. So they ended up in the split 4-4-4 scenario, which Merchan said, oh, yeah, I'm going to consider that a unanimous verdict, even though they can't identify what exactly, what crime he is actually being accused of covering up. Anyway, and the brief continued and said that it doesn't support vacating that verdict, let alone dismissal of the indictment, even if its reasoning did apply. So, what the defense was saying is that his meaning Donald Trump's conversations with a couple different people, Hope Hicks, I believe, is the main one. Yeah, Hope Hicks and Oval Office Director of Operations, Madeleine Westerhout. And they are basically saying that the prosecution relied on testimony from those two people. And because of the clarification, that means that now their testimony is no longer valid. And the prosecution used their testimony to establish that President Trump had signed Trump Organization checks at the White House. So, yeah, this is going to be interesting. Mershon has got his hands full for this, for sure. So hopefully we're going to get something out of this in regards to this soon. Let me just see. Yeah, so he is scheduled, former Trump's sentencing is still scheduled for September 18th. And the judge is expected to issue a ruling on this presidential immunity arguments by that time. So it's, yeah, but Bragg says, nope. Yeah, there's no presidential immunity here. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think that's going to be the case. I have a feeling if Mershon has any semblance of intelligence, he'll back away from this thing as quickly as possible. All right, that's pretty much it for me for tonight. So do me a favor. If you haven't done so already, please head on over to rumble.com. And once there, sign up for an account. It is free. And once you get your account, search up the American Perspective channel and make sure you hit that green follow button to make sure that you are notified when I go live every single day. Also, if you are on Rumble and already signed in, please make sure you hit that thumbs up button. It should be located right about here in the video. And make sure that you hit that thumbs up button and get me onto the leaderboard. We'll go ahead and hopefully get on the leaderboard and maybe even be an editor's pick sometime in the near future. I will be broadcasting again tomorrow night, 1 hour later. 1 hour later for the show. It's 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on Saturdays. And I got to give a shout out really quick. Music Man, thank you very much for the Rumble rant. I do appreciate it. And he says, hey, Rick, it's been a minute, but this is just a show. I appreciate what you do. Well, I appreciate you coming and watching my show. I do appreciate that. All right, like I said, 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. Have a great rest of your evening and heading on into the weekend. We will see you tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.